live on Facebook. My goodness me. It's been too long since today's guest was last on the show. We're joined by the fabulous Rachel Earing, who is a healer and author of the book The Spiral of Life, a public speaker and host of the podcast. I hope I'm going to say this right. The Wyrd World of Knowing.
That's correct, Danny. Yes.
Cool.
The Wyrd world.
Yeah. And the topic of discussion today is reality and what it means to you and each of us. It's a meaty subject and one that can benefit us all once understood. First off, though, thank you for being on here today, Rachel, and a warm welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here, Danny. And it has been a while, but we don't apologise about things like that because we're all busy, aren't we? And we've all got things to do in between. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. If you could just begin by maybe sharing a little bit about yourself, what you do, a bit of background as to how you got here in the first place, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, of course. I am an energy trainer and therapist. I founded Live for Energy Training College. That sort of sprouted out, as most things did during lockdown. I suddenly became a training college as I put the disciplines from EFT into something called TARC EFT, which is an around-the-clock version, around the Chinese meridian clock version of using tapping, which goes much deeper into how EFT works, why it works, what bits get stuck where, and it just helps people have the education behind everything that we do as well. I suppose I got into all that because having been in the world of television for 20 plus years and as a researcher and coordinator and working in that environment, we were taught to research everything and question everything and delve more than skin deep into what we were doing. So through that process, although we know EFT works, emotional freedom technique works, and we know Reiki works, and we know NLP works and hypnosis, I wanted to know why it worked, which then again took me on further research of now I'm not working alongside, but I'm finding myself in the same rooms as quantum scientists who are at the top end of their research, giving us the formulas and the data of why spiritual healing and tapping into that magnetic field, what that actually means from a statistical point of view, a mechanical point of view, and an embodied sort of point of view that we can now get hold of and go, oh, that's why this works. That's why this happens. And it's fun.
Yes. Thank you for that. I just want to share a little bit about how we first connected. It was just over 2 years ago now. I was in a load of pain one night. I didn't know at the time I had cancer, but I knew something was off and I was in loads of pain. And I remember thinking, desperate. I went onto YouTube to do, I thought I had gallstones, gallbladder issues. And I did a search on YouTube for tapping for gallstones. And I came across you and I was like, ooh. Tapped on it, and it was like a 10-minute tap or something, and I went from being in loads of pain from like a number 10. Did it once, it came down to about a 7. I was like, oh, a bit of breathing space. Did it again. I think I did it 2 or 3 times, and it came down to about a 3 or a 4. And then soon after, I was asleep, pain free, and I thought, wow, holy shit! And I left a comment on your video the next day. And then I happened to tell Sam Whitaker the next day, I did this really cool video last night from someone called Rachel Earing. She says, I know Rachel well. And so one thing led to another, and we ended up on a live stream together some time ago before I had my operation. And obviously we've been in touch ever since. I want to ask you, Rachel, you mentioned about being in the same rooms as highly esteemed guests at the top of the field. Are you able to share at this point in time who these people are? And I think they're going to be on your podcast. Is that right?
Yes, series 2 of the Wyrd World of Knowing, which is the podcast which came about. So Wyrd is spelt with a Y, just so if anyone's trying to look it up, you do need to look up with Wyrd with a Y. The reason it's called Wyrd with a Y is because that's basically taking us Brits back to our roots. So we have the tarot cards, we have a lot of things that we've sort of brought in from other parts around the world. But actually, when we go back to our Celtic roots, Anglo-Saxon times, the word wyrd was very much about the supernatural, was very much about tapping into these strange areas, the magnetic field, it's very difficult to explain. Now, the word wyrd changed when Shakespeare, created the three witches, the three sisters, and then that was taken on board in a way that became Wyrd with an IE, so that it became not necessarily beneficial to people who were weird, and we became under threat in a way for doing a lot of the activities that we do now for spiritual healing, Reiki, natural sources such as herbs and things like that. So it was important to go back to the word wyrd, as I found myself at a conference, a science and consciousness conference up at Broughton Sanctuary in Skipton, that was sent to me. This is how energy works. So when you are working intuitively with how you move yourself forward, I got a message from my trainee in Pennsylvania who said, who is a real geek, he's real science buff, he's fantastic, he knows all physics information, he works with computers. I said, I would be going to this if this was anywhere near me. Is it anywhere near you? So I had a look at it and I said, oh gosh, it's about 40 minutes away. So I ended up on this conference with there were about 40 of us at Broughton Sanctuary with quantum scientists who and people from Princeton University who'd set up the Pairs Lab over there, who Brenda Dunn and Robert Jean. Robert has now passed away, and Brenda passed away last year, unfortunately. But they've spent the past 30 years actually investigating the quantum mechanics behind the power of intention and how consciousness works. So they had all their equipment brought over to Yorkshire so people can actually go to Broughton Sanctuary and experience the Wyrd experience and use their equipment to test your own intuition. And that's how I found myself sort of in the same room as quantum scientists. Lynn McTaggart was there, and Brenda Dunn, and so many other wonderful people, doctors who are using a lot of the tech and things that are out there, inventors who are creating the new engineering technicalities for registering and collecting this data of what is actually happening out in the field for when people even pass away. So what is happening in the room, and they take a baseline figure, what actually happens when somebody passes away. And they're going to be also looking about what happens when we're born, what happens into that field. And it's really quite significant.
Cool. Well, the topic today is, what is reality and what does it mean for you? I mean, what is reality? Am I really sitting in front of a brick wall, or is that an illusion? Am I really
these are really good questions that we ask ourselves, aren't we? And quantum science is really showing us that, in a way, unless we put our attention on it, nothing really exists. And I was actually given a really good example of this morning, because I've just been at a network meeting, and this gentleman was telling us about his twilight experience. He is an architect, and he'd been sent to this old house stuck in the hills that needed renovation, needed new architect design, and he'd gone along. And the backstory to this is that this house had been torched, and unfortunately there was a person inside there at the time. And as he went into the house hadn't been cleared a great deal, and there was remnants in there that he was really quite uncomfortable with. And as he went upstairs, he was in a very remote place in Yorkshire, and he heard the radio come on, and he said it was Radio 2. He said, and it was just really, really weird. He said, and then it carried on doing what he was doing, and then it went off, and then it came on again. Now, I'd just been watching collecting some information about what actually happens, and quantum scientists and quantum engineers now have actually created studies on what happens when you record something for 20 seconds on a mini little recorder, and the one that's supposed to receive it has had the battery taken out. Okay, so they recorded 20 minutes worth of somebody talking, and they put this receiver down on the table with no battery in. And in the middle of that table, there is a magnetic field device that just collects data from the magnetic field. So when they'd collected this recording for 20 seconds, they put the battery back in the blue one, and then they plugged the blue one into a device that had the electromagnetic field, and it played back the exact message. So what is our reality? Is it exactly what we can just feel, hear and see now, or is there something else? And quantum physics and scientists are now proving that this field, the magnetic field that is out there, that Lynn McTaggart talks about, the field, the bond, is literally something that we can tap into and resonate with. And when we resonate with it at the same frequency, we're able to gather more information.
Don't know what happened there. But we lost the stream for a while. We seem to be back now, so hopefully, can you hear me?
Yeah, well, that's just technology, isn't it? Sort of
Yes.
Resonating at its own little frequency.
Yes.
So for anyone who didn't catch that, basically, the field, the bond that is literally outside of us, that our memories in a way are outside of us. Scientists are proving that we don't actually have any memories inside our head, in our body. So where are they? Are they in this magnetic field? And if they're in this magnetic field, the less dense memories are closer to our body, if not inside our body. But our happy memories are further outside of that field. So that's why it takes longer for it to come back to us to recollect.
Cool. It's funny when you mentioned the voice recording that didn't have a battery, and reminds me of many years ago, probably nearly 20 years ago, I was wanting to become a medium, and my gifts were being shown to me. And I was sitting reading, had a little light on. I was sitting reading a book, and just in the house by myself, and the TV suddenly came on for about 5 seconds, maybe slightly more. I thought, wow, that's weird. How could that happen? When I got up to investigate, not only was it not like on, it wasn't even plugged in at the wall, so it had been unplugged. I thought, ooh, that's bizarre. That's like, that takes some explaining away. I've never known that before or since. How can that even happen? But yeah. So
and we're finding that more and more. It's becoming, the weird is becoming more acceptable now for us to talk about, because these weird things that do happen, and they happen to thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world, and everybody's got a story. Yeah. Everybody has got a weird story, which is why I've put together the Weird World of Knowing, so that we can bring people together from as many spectrums as possible. I can't say all spectrums, but as many spectrums as possible, for us to be able to help ourselves feel more acceptable and normal, that whatever we're feeling and sensing, there is a 6th, 7th, 8th, maybe, 12 dimensions maybe that we are delving into now and are becoming more open to us.
Yeah. If you're watching this live stream, I know we've got viewers on or catching the replay, please do put your comments, any questions you might have for Rachel as we move through the stream.
I must say, I'm not a scientist. So don't ask me anything technical. This is literally where I just find myself in situations where the universe sends me, and this is the information that I'm sort of given firsthand. And I must say, Danny, I don't know about you, but I am on the spectrum, and hey, which one I don't know, but whichever one I tap into, it really is beautiful. And I think the benefit of actually that is that it leaves us more open to these weird experiences and following our intuition. Because when we follow our intuition and don't allow ourselves to be boxed in, we find ourselves in these really, we wonder why we're there, We know we've gone there on purpose, we've followed it, but we find ourselves in rooms of thinking, okay, why am I in a room full of quantum scientists? I know I put an intention out there quite a while ago about wanting the science and needing to be vibrationally lifted and having more knowledge. Is this it? And then you find at the end of that time together, that's exactly why you're there.
I've got a cool, quick little stories to share before we move on. The first one was, I put a picture of you for an advert for this live stream with holding your book, your author of the Wheel of Life. Yeah. And someone on my friends list says, oh, I've got that book, they're busy working through it, busy reading through it and stuff. And I thought that was really cool. And the second one was I've got this another friend who's, she's an alternative therapist, a psychologist, and so on. And she was on this weekend. They were seeing some. I can't remember who the speaker was, but it was someone well known. And she ended up getting friendly with someone who was on the course, and they were chatting between the seminars and things like that. And she kept on about this book. Oh, this book, I've been reading it, and I'm getting so much inspiration from it. And I've got like sticking notes on it and blah blah blah. And my friend had heard so much about this book. In the end, she says, well, who is it? She says, oh, I've got it with us. And she pulled out this book, and my friend says, I wrote that book. That's what I mean.
Oh, fantastic. Beautiful.
That's right. That's just so
beautiful.
You can inspire people who you may never meet, or you may meet, but...
And sometimes I think we need that confirmation as well, don't we, Danny? Because we doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
No matter what stage we're at, we doubt ourselves, and we often need that confirmation of, am I on the right path? Is this really what I should be doing? And when we allow ourselves to follow and go where we're led, even if and often we don't know why we're at places, often we don't know why some people say stuck talking to people, but actually when you take away the word stuck and you replace it with, blending in with people that you wouldn't normally, not necessarily choose to be with, actually, that's when you get those real hidden gems of information, and you're able to share between you. Like I did at this network meeting this morning, it was mainly a group of businessmen. And then good old spiritual Rachel turns in talking about energy therapy and very, very different from people who are printing and lawyers and accountants. And yet it started off the gentleman talking about his twilight experience, which led perfectly for me to be able to explain how that might have come about. Yeah. And sometimes we need that confirmation of, why am I here in this place? And I know that now I'm that bridge. I'm bridging a gap between business and the mystical, and bringing in the science, so that there is that explanation that people can accept more. And people were actually really quite excited in that meeting to actually, understand a little bit more.
Yeah. I know I've started helping people again organically, because I went through a phase of self-doubt and I'm not good enough, blah blah blah, all the ego crap that goes on in your mind, and then you have a break and you grow and life gets in the way, and then it comes back, and it just all comes back organically. And as you see, you get those people who can validate, and it kind of rekindles your interest in your soul work and what you're here to do.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And I really agree with what you're saying there as well, Danny, because we seem to think that we need to be this, tapped in person to the field all the time. And we are, but actually being conscious of that all the time is quite a task sometimes to do. And it's a challenge to do, because our physical body sends us in different directions because it needs to heal something. And when we resist that, because we've got to just get on with our everyday life, I've got to go and make some money, I've got to eat, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, we feel that tension all the more. And it's very difficult to break out of that cycle sometimes that we find ourselves in. But when we know, as if we give ourselves permission to relax into that, it eases the pressure. But it doesn't matter, I don't think, who you are on that path. We all resist it. We all have a resistance to it because we're living in this planet, we're living in this world, and it's very 3D for the majority of the time. And I think we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break, actually, and thinking that I need to know all this information now, because our journey is over a lifespan. We don't need to know it all now. Each little bit that we get stuck on becomes really important down the line when we can look back at it and go, that's why I was stuck. That's exactly why.
Yeah, and there's like seasons to your life, isn't there, as well, I've found. And even though we can be 20, we want to be sort of wise and have growth that we may not achieve either in this lifetime until we're 50 or 60. I want it now, but you know, you're not ready for it. You'd go insane if it was suddenly bestowed upon you. You would go nuts.
And I think we fight our gifts as well, you know, because I don't know about you, but I wanted my gifts to be much more academic than they are. You know, I wanted to be that academic, that I love listening to people who can eloquently explain things with facts and figures that basically I cannot retain that information and then put it across eloquently. And I adore listening to very educated people who can use all these beautiful long words, and it sounds, and for me, I have no idea what you're talking about because I don't understand what half these words mean, you know, but it sounds gorgeous. It sounds really beautiful. So I have great respect for people of science and academia. So part of me has always wanted to be that, which is why I think I found myself in this place where all these people were in a it was stately home that was literally second place to Downton Abbey. So, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful place. And I'm sat there thinking, oh, right, this is very nice. This is gorgeous, lovely. And my body reacts before my brain. So I am led by what my body wants to do intuitively. I'm doing things before my brain kicks in as to why I'm doing it. So I find myself in places that I'm, you know, when you're driving along, sometimes, you know, I'll find myself in another place from where I've set off to. And I go with that now. So I find myself in these places. I don't question it. I go along with it and I let it unfold around me. But the difficulty sometimes when you're in a position that is very academic and very intellectual, when your body led, is that if your body lets out what we think is an embarrassment, an embarrassing sign, we reject it all the more. So if somebody yawns or burps or coughs or, you know, sweats or anything like that, we feel really uncomfortable and embarrassed that our body is letting us down. And actually, I found that being in that room full of people when something was going on and the door was over there and I was literally sat more or less in a corner and I couldn't get out of the door because I was hemmed in by all these people, and I suddenly retched very loudly in front of all these academics. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to get out. I need to get out. But then I suddenly felt better. And that happened twice more. So 3 times in total, I sat there and I retched in a very embarrassing, loud way in front of all these people. And I suddenly realized this is my gift, because I knew exactly what it was, the information I was getting from it. We were talking about constellation work. There was constellation going on in the room. It was about a grape and the community and all sorts of things. And I had energetically got into that reality of being in that field. And I was reacting to the grape and the community, and I was retching with disgust, and I could feel it. And that was my knowing at the time. But I'm sat there thinking, well, how on earth do I explain this one to people? This isn't very academic. This is my body reacting in a way that's actually very embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. So we've got Craig, who's coincidentally was going to be my next guest on the show.
Yeah, I quite agree with that, actually, Craig. We're all scientists if we actually start to be conscious of our own body, aren't we, and our mind, and we start to investigate it. And I think that's the beauty of playing with what we do. The more we play with it and the more we have fun with it and the more we are less judgmental of all these sweaty, nitty gritty parts of ourselves, actually, the more you giggle at how ridiculous the signs are that they're giving you that you're on the right path.
Yeah. You mentioned retching.
You, Danny?
You mentioned retching there. When I do one-on-one sessions as the host, I often cough and retch when I'm helping the person in front of me to process energy and shifts. And there's Dinah Lane as well. When she does healing, she is like the burpometer, and when she's helping process energy, she's burping. And I used to find that hilarious. I'm used to it now because I've worked with her so many times, but it is hilarious. Yeah. Do you ever question your own reality, Rachel? And do you think it really is so subjective?
I think question my reality every single day from the minute I wake up, and even when I'm sleeping. The reality there is you often wake up from having been somewhere else on your dreams, on your travels, of what that means. And I used to question it, and so I used to question it and try and get an intellectual answer. And it used to drive me crazy. So I stopped trying to do that, and I started to act on what I was being given. So I would make an action of it. So, for example, I was constantly being given an incentive when I woke up to be even closer to nature than I already was. So I woke up one day and thought, oh, I've got to do something with this. This is ridiculous. And the vision I had is I needed to go out and be naked in nature, in the woods, and run around and just have fun. But I thought, there's no way I'm doing that on my own. So I rang up a friend of mine and went, okay, how do you fancy? And we'll get a photographer and we'll group of girls and we'll go out and we'll just go and do this. And she went, really? I went, are you serious? Yes. So that's what we did. And within a month, we'd gathered a group of ladies together, most of who I didn't know. They were on Facebook. And everyone turned up, and it was piddling down with rain. And we got a photographer together, and we went up into the woods, and that's it. We started off with just stripping off into our underwear, and we had some nice shots. And as we got a little bit braver, and then towards the end, we were literally naked, and we did this naked run, and it needed to be a run because we needed to have that fresh air everywhere. So we went and did this naked run and came back, and we'd got our knickers and bras back on just as the first person that could have possibly walked past came towards us with his dog. You know what? We didn't flinch. It was as if we'd literally just got off a bus, because we were so giggly and so in our own energy that we hadn't even cottoned on with the fact that we weren't even dressed, and it wasn't an issue for us. Now, at the very start of that, we were very shy about being, half naked in front of each other. So within the space of an hour of that transition happening, was liberating. It was beautiful. It was intoxicating. It was one of the most liberating afternoons I think that any of us had had. But from that dream of where I could have intellectually tried to fathom out what it all meant, and does it mean this? Does it mean that? We actually went and did it. And I think that's what, if more people went out and started to do the things that they're actually having their realities, their dreams from, and were curious enough to actually say what is possible. We created a book from that, and I asked everyone to write a chapter about their mental health story. And locally, we provided for over 10 families mental health care. Now, I didn't know that was going to happen from me thinking, oh, I need to go out and be naked in the woods. But look what did happen.
Exactly. As you see, it's so liberating. And once you've done that, what are you? You're going to feel much more empowered to go and do stuff that's far less intimidating than that, or far less scary than that. So I think it's the same as like when you run over hot coals. You think, well, once I've done that, what else can I go on to achieve? What else is going to be worse or more scary than that? Nothing.
And I think that's it. There are so many possibilities out there. that we can literally tap into if we give ourselves permission to do. But we get so caught up into the intellectual version of what we think it should be, instead of going out and exploring physically the possibilities of what will my body and mind let me do. And if there are restrictions there, that's fine too. All of that is absolutely fine, because we're still learning about, okay, my mind and my body don't want me to do that yet because I don't feel safe enough. Okay, that's fine. So maybe if I go away and I can be conscious of that, that might change. And it might not. I might need to be very safe around that. So I might never need to go and look at that again, but at least you'll know because you've experienced it. But if, when you're taking secondhand knowledge from someone else and you've not experienced, embodied that for what that feels like for you, how do you know?
Exactly. I want to try and bring in some of the things I placed on the advert, so not to give a false impression of what we're going to be talking about today. You mentioned going out into nature, in the forest or whatever it was, and so I posed the question: if a tree fell in the woods, would it make a sound if there was no one there to hear it? And one step further, would the forest even be there if there was no one there to observe it? I wonder if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, when you say no one, do you mean just humans?
I don't know.
Because we're not the only living creatures on the planet.
True. Yeah, obviously trees are living. There's animals, there's birds, that's a great point. Yeah.
So things are being observed all the time by anything that has a cellular structure, surely. And then there's the etherical structure that we're only just finding about, from quantum physics, but we feel. So how do we observe that? And that actually brings me on to, so when we're doing healing at a distance, and we're tapping into that field, if I was tapping into your energy field from where I am and where you are, and I could experience what was happening in your body and your energy system, then I might see colors, I might see shapes, I might be yawning, I might get itchy skin, all sorts of things might happen as I pick up those type of sensations. So that is a completely different reality of me being able to resonate and tune into you. That is a different reality to me physically being with you and touching your arm or examining your skin.
Yeah. But if you weren't there to observe it, would there be other birds and things? Like, I know that they did this experiment with quantum physics where I think it was particles and atoms. When they were being observed, they acted a certain way. And when the observer looked away and weren't observing them, they went back to like a neutral sort of state. And then as soon as the person looked back, so they started acting a certain way. I've probably butchered that explanation or that description. But
it's like, I don't know the science. I don't know the science behind this, but there are the Nobel Prize has just gone to 3 quantum physicists who have done experiments with protons being entangled over the river Danube as one example. So they had one proton on one side and then another proton on the other side of the Danube. And when they observed this proton, that proton did exactly the same thing. Now, like you say, when it's not observed, does it? So when our energy goes to it, does it then facilitate yet another? Because where energy goes, energy flows. So our thoughts are actually as faster than mechanical equipment that can produce a reaction to something. And they're proving that with putting in a glass container, a vacuumed glass container, an object that can swivel round, so a tiny little metal object that can swivel round. And now anything that is in a vacuum literally should not be able to move at all. There should be no impact on it whatsoever. And this scientist, when he sat with it, he was able to, and they take a baseline figure. So they take a baseline reading for a couple of days of what does that actually mean? And it doesn't move. It's very tiny. And they take the medium of what that might mean for any movement at all. And then there's a significant dip in that chart, activity in that chart, when they move it with his thoughts. That's with his thoughts. And then somebody else did that from 1,000 miles away over Zoom, and it literally went off the scale. I think it took about 20 minutes. So you've got to give it time to actually start to react. But then when that reaction actually happens, it literally goes off that scale of activity.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
But I mean, that's all I know from what they've done. I couldn't explain any more than what I've just explained.
No, that's fine.
Other than we know where we put our energy, we have an effect if we are very intentional with it. And if we're very intentional with it, we can do absolutely remarkable things, like heal people physically or move things.
Yeah. I remember
If
being
we could get that into schools and start to help children, and if children could start to use this, which I know is happening, and it's happening in the UK, the ICU Foundation down south, they are literally working with children, and children have got blindfolds on that are sealed. So literally there's nothing at all. And these children are reading from books. These children are able to tell you what colour cards they put up, what the object is, and they can't see. They're doing it from the whole conscious field of their magnetic field, not just from here. So we say that we can see consciousness is coming through us into our retina and out of our eye, but actually if we just use consciousness, we're using all of us to be able to see. But that obviously is a skill, and it takes practice. And children are much better at it than we are.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you use this subjective reality to try and get a better connection with your clients when you're doing healing work, or people generally?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes people need the education, but I think we all need the education. So I'm on a mission now, which is why I'm actually going out more into businesses. Because, yeah, from a one-to-one perspective, I've discovered with the TARC EFT that I created in just putting my own charts together and finding the data behind that, it's led me further into this journey. But actually our economy is suffering. And yes, we can do this individually and help each other individually, but what if we do this and help each other through business and help businesses become intentional with what they're doing? If we help businesses become even more creative in the way that they help their staff, help their staff's family, actually sit together and bond for, minutes over the whole day. And actually what you're able to create is far greater and more beautiful than you could even plan. As I've been saying, have this vision of what you want, but actually then the scope of that magnetic field of how you actually get there widens instead of it being a very narrow view. So if instead of having that narrow view of business of how to get there, imagine, when you have a business and they've got a landing page with their commitment of care and their values, what their values. Well, instead of just having a landing page that says that, your whole staff feel and experience and embody your values because they know what that feels like. And then the whole scope of experience goes like that for that business to move forward.
That's interesting. Never thought of it like that before. Yeah.
So we're very good at taking it, this is what happens to me, but actually we can do this even more powerfully as a group. And I know that the group work they've been doing, and I know that, with other people around the world who are doing this group work, it is so powerful. And actually, when you get feedback from each group member about what they're experiencing, the reactions and the sensations and the information is very similar, but it's different. So what it's giving that person when they get their feedback as a whole, they're getting a whole broader spectrum that not one person can just give a whole perspective. Actually, when we're there together as a group, you're getting a much wider variation of what could possibly happen, how I could possibly look at it, how it might feel.
Mm-hmm. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your podcast a little bit more. I know you're looking for leaders who maybe want to come on and share a bit of their space time with you, and or be on the podcast. So now's your chance to maybe speak.
Oh, thanks, Danny. So I've started to do series 2, and I wasn't actually going to do another series of the podcast. I thought I was just going to do the one from Broughton, but actually, when I asked Lynn McTaggart if she'd come on, I just found myself saying, "Would you come on my podcast?" And she said yes. I thought, oh, okay, that was easy.
Yes.
So I wonder where this is going to take us next time. So it's taken me on this path of putting together a podcast again, which, I'm getting much more involved with and improving myself. This is very much a tool for anyone who's thinking of doing things like this, where it's like having your own little coaching sessions with the people that you bring on. So my personal growth, it's very important that I grew at the same time as the people that I'm helping grow. Yeah. Does that make sense? So okay. That's why the Wyrd world was created. So I was still having contact with people who were going to push my boundaries. And I was going to bridge the gap between people who are like me and science and scientists, so that we could bridge that gap of my language and their language. So then when I launched on Sunday with Lynn's first episode, I came on StreamYard and went into my group and invited a few people from the group to come up and have a chat. And we had real fun, and we were literally just chatting about things like this. Good. So I said, okay, why don't we put an episode in between the interviews where people who need help with a business, need help being visible, who are open to coming on and being visible and chatting, I'll record it and we'll put this in the middle of people like Lynn and Dark and Dr. Peter Stapleton who are coming on, so that I'm actually helping people who are at the start of their businesses be more visible, and we're doing it in a fun way together, and just felt nice. So that's what we're doing now every Sunday morning at 9:30. So if you want to come on, give me a shout.
Cool. You heard it here first. So if that appeals to you, reach out to Rachel. Rachel, how can people best get in contact with you?
I'm on Facebook. Live for Energy Training College. I'm on Instagram, Rachel Earing Energy Trainer Therapist. Can't remember my ID for that, so it's something like that. I'm on LinkedIn. My website is liveforenergy.co.uk.
Can you just repeat your website there? You broke up when you started. You got the 3 W's and then you broke up. So can you repeat?
Yeah, so Live for Energy. So it's LIVE with the number 4 in the middle. liveforenergy.co.uk.
Brilliant. Awesome.
Thanks, Danny.
Like I say, if you've been watching this live stream or catching your replay, do drop your comments, your questions for Rachel. If it's retrospectively, we'll circle back to answer them for you. Is there any final thoughts you have, Rachel?
Be curious. Be curious about your possibilities, because you are the most interesting creature on this planet. And when you start to delve into what your unique signals are, you will probably find that all the weird bits that you've been trying to hide, they're your genius bits. So when you let those come out and play, you're going to have a really good time. For me, it's all about go and have a good time.
Yeah, exactly. I love writing, but I'm dyslexic. But there's things like spell check and Grammarly, which I use all the time. So, before my work gets published, even personal messages, it's all being cleaned up. I get words the wrong way around constantly, incessantly, and I can't help it. Craig has said, yes, I'd love to come on, Rachel.
Right, come and get in touch, Craig. That'd be lovely.
Awesome. It makes sense. Rachel, you've been a delight. How things have moved on since our first interview to like 2 and a bit years later. Things are just like, so much different.
It's crazy, isn't it? But beautiful. Thank you so much, Danny.
Right. Lovely chatting with you. Thank you for watching this show, whether live or on a replay. Craig's exciting, yes, for sure. And until next time, much love to you all. We've got another one on Monday, which I'll be advertising soon. So that's coming up with actually Craig. So anyway, bye for now. Thanks for tuning in. Much love.
Take care.